into my microphone and say that into my camera to viewers at the station I work at, it is disrespectful.
And I respect it.
If your mom saw you talk like
my mom would die laughing eventually.
I somehow doubt his mother is laughing right now.
Yeah, well, that's the guy that was fired yesterday from over $100,000 job a year with, I think it's called Hydro One in Ontario for, he didn't actually say the comments, but he certainly was making light of them and thought he was funny.
Yeah, it's that trend that's been going around, guys yelling into female reporters' microphones. We can't say it on the air, but it's pretty vulgar, and this reporter wasn't going to take it anymore, and she called them out on it, and it's gone viral. So we wanted to talk more about this with Alfred Hermida, who's the head of journalism at UBC, also the author of a book called Tell Everyone, which is about our need to share everything on social media. Alfred, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Sophie.
So we wanted to get your take on this because there are quite a few issues at play here. One, the reporter becoming the story, public shaming, the fact that this has been going on for over a year and really has become a problem for female reporters. What's your take on what happened there?
I think the big difference here is that when this happens with a TV reporter with a live broadcast, it tends to come and go. If you weren't tuned into the broadcast at that particular time, you wouldn't see it. But by putting it on social media, by posting the video, you take what's become ephemeral and make it permanent. And you also give it legs. It means that it wasn't just the people who tuned into City at that particular moment to watch this, but actually people sharing it throughout the internet. And suddenly it gets a prominence and a profile that person yelling at that reporter didn't expect to see themselves all over the news this morning, didn't expect themselves to be shamed across the internet.
We've always said that, people have to be careful what they post on their own sites. But, here's a good example of someone who just happened to be in a position and he didn't make the comment, but he certainly responded to the comments that were being made. And that's got him in a whole lot of hot water.
Well, essentially, well, this is an act that's happening in public, but the difference here might be that it's not just happening in public at that particular moment, but it gets immortalized online. And the fact that then it's not just the media sharing it, but tens of thousands of people who then post it to Facebook, post it to Twitter. So that person suddenly does something in public that they didn't think really was going to be of much interest to the public in general. But people seize on it, say this behavior is unacceptable, and they become the face of this very unacceptable behavior.
Right, and I mean, we've sort of seen that in the case of our own Christy Gordon getting those letters about clothes she wears. And Alfred, the other thing is normally we wouldn't touch a story that has to do with a competitor, but it's become a story on all news outlets across Canada. So that goes to show, we jump on the bandwagon a bit too.
And this has happened, not just this time, but it's happened over several years to lots of reporters on different networks. So it's been going on for a while. I think what this does is give it a higher profile and say, look, this is not just an isolated issue. This is the fact that you get young men who feel they have a privilege to say these kind of things you feel young men who feel they have some kind of privilege to say these sorts of things to female reporters or people on TV saying it's a joke. It's not a joke. It's offensive. It's degrading. It's unacceptable behavior. And these young men need to be held accountable.
Is there it's interesting because we've seen a lot in the last while people pick up on certain things. We mean this one, Christie's, some other incidents that have happened in the news that people get behind when they feel some kind of outrage. And then
this woman who was tweeting on her way to South Africa.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, and then it's sort of the tables get turned and we've talked about people start bullying the bullies, so to speak.
Yeah, what happens here sometimes is things can get taken out of context on social media. So when you send out a 140-character tweet and you're trying to be funny or sarcastic, that often doesn't translate, especially when we don't know these people. We just see this snapshot of them and make an instant decision. So this is where, in some ways, social media urges us to act immediately, to say, let's repost this, let's share this, and to join the crowd saying, this is terrible, we have to do something about it. But very often we don't know the broader context because we don't know that person. And sometimes a joke doesn't translate very well into a Facebook post or a little tweet.
One other thing we wanted to talk to you about, Alfred, is the big announcement by Facebook and the New York Times and a few other media outlets today, National Geographic, I think NBC News as well. They're partnering with Facebook to bring users something called instant articles. This is a new way to look at news stories right in your news feed in Facebook. And some media watchers say this is going to change the way stories are distributed or how the business of journalism works.
A new way for publishers to create
I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at it yet, but it's pretty impressive.
I took a look this morning, and I've got to say, they make stories appear on this kind of device much prettier and much more accessible than most news organizations. So from Facebook's point of view, it's saying lots of people are using their mobile phone to access Facebook, to access the news. How can we make it a really enjoyable experience for them? But the thing is, they need content. They need the material from news organizations. So there's a bit of a devil's bargain here, Faustian bargain, where the news organizations need to go to where the audience is. And if we have 3/4 of Canadians who are on Facebook and spend a lot of time there, you need to be there. But the thing is, you're actually giving control over your material to somebody else. It's like Global saying, well, we'll produce the breakfast show, but it's going to be aired by City or it's going to be aired by CBC. It's almost, it's not an enemy, it's not your friend, it's your frenemy.
Yeah, so that we can all survive in this business in that way.
But it does give Facebook a lot of control because they are the way to the audience.
Right. Well, they've said their next step is going to be broadcasting through Facebook, so we'll see how that goes in the years to come.
All right, thanks so much for joining us, Alfred.
My pleasure.
Alfred Hermida with the UBC School of Journalism, and his book is called Tell Everyone.